The sun stood high over the village of Ahenfie, burning the red earth until it cracked like dry lips. At the center of the village square, under the old baobab tree, sat a man who could not see the sun, yet felt its heat more than anyone else. His name was Kofi. He was blind. He was broke. And on that day, he became the joke of the entire village. The sound came before the pain. Laughter. Sharp, loud, careless laughter that cut deeper than any knife. Kofi sat on a worn mat, his legs folded beneath him, his head slightly bowed. His clothes were clean but old, patched many times by careful hands that once believed life would be kind again. In front of him lay a small wooden bowl. Inside it were only 3 coins. Not enough to buy food. Not enough to buy hope. Children passed and laughed. Women shook their heads. Men whispered cruel words and did not bother to lower their voices. "Look at him," one man said. "A grown man who sees nothing and owns nothing. Even the goats have more use than him," another replied, and laughter rose again. Kofi did not answer. He had learned that silence was his shield. He listened instead, to the footsteps, the wind, the distant drums from another village. He listened to life moving forward without him. Once, long ago, Kofi had walked tall in this same square. Once, people greeted him with respect. But blindness had stolen more than his sight. It had stolen his place. A sudden hush fell over the crowd. Footsteps approached, slow, heavy, uneven. Kofi felt a cold tighten in his chest. He knew that walk. He had known it in the dark of night and the warmth of love. Oma. The murmurs returned, louder now, full of excitement. "That is his woman," someone whispered. "No, his former woman," another corrected. "See her belly. She is with child." Oma stopped a few steps away from Kofi. He could smell the shea butter on her skin, mixed with dust and pride. Her breathing was hard, not from walking, but from anger that had slept too long. "So this is where you sit now," Oma said loudly, her voice sharp enough for everyone to hear. "Begging like a child." The crowd leaned closer. Kofi lifted his head. His empty eyes faced her direction, though they saw nothing. "Oma," he said softly, "I did not know you were here." She laughed. Not the gentle laugh she once shared with him, but a hard one, meant to wound. "Of course you didn't know. You never know anything anymore." A few people chuckled. Oma placed a hand on her swollen belly. "Look at me, Kofi. I am carrying a child. Life is moving forward for me. And you." She pointed at his bowl. "You are still here, waiting for pity." Kofi's fingers tightened around the edge of the mat. His heart beat fast, but his voice remained calm. "I wish you peace, Oma." "Peace," she snapped. "Peace does not feed a woman. Peace does not protect a child. I left you because you became useless." The word useless fell like a stone. A man stepped forward. "You're tall, loud, dressed in fine cloth he could barely afford." He wrapped an arm around Oma's shoulder. "This blind man could not even protect himself," you said. "How could he protect a family?" The crowd laughed again, louder this time. Someone tossed a coin into Kofi's bowl. It landed with a sharp sound. "Here," the man said. "At least buy yourself silence." Kofi did not bend to pick it up. Oma looked down at him one last time. "Do not ever speak my name again," she said. "My child will never know you." Her footsteps moved away. You followed. The crowd slowly returned to its noise, satisfied that the show was over. But something unseen had happened. Kofi's chest burned, not with anger, but with a quiet fire. He reached down and closed his bowl, pushing it aside. Slowly, he stood. The laughter faded as people noticed. The blind man stood straight. He raised his face to the sky he could not see and spoke, not to the people, but to the land beneath his feet. I may have lost my eyes, he said calmly, but I have not lost my spirit. No one answered. Kofi turned and walked away, guided by memory and faith. Behind him, the village returned to its careless joy, unaware that they had just mocked a destiny they could not understand. And beneath the old baobab tree, the ancestors listened. Before darkness became Kofi's world, before the village called him useless, there was a time when his eyes were strong and his future looked wide and bright. In those days, Kofi walked with long steps and easy laughter. His shoulders were straight, and his hands were never empty. He worked the land with his father at the edge of Ahenfie, where the soil was rich and the morning smelled of fresh grass and hope. Oma had loved him then. She used to wait for him at the river, her feet in the water, singing softly as she washed clothes. When Kofi came, she would smile before he even spoke, as if she could feel his presence in her bones. They talked about building a small house near the palm trees. They talked about children running barefoot, calling Kofi father with pride. In those days, the village respected him. Elders nodded when he passed. Young men asked for advice. Life felt steady, like a drumbeat that never missed a step. Then the sickness came. It started as a small pain behind Kofi's eyes. At first, he ignored it. Men in Ahenfie were taught not to complain. But the pain grew. The sun became too bright. The nights felt longer. Soon, his vision blurred, and shadows danced where people stood. Oma noticed first. "You are squinting," she said one evening. "Go and see the herbalist." Kofi did. He drank bitter herbs. He washed his eyes with warm leaves. The village healer shook his head but said nothing. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into fear. One morning, Kofi woke up and saw only darkness. He cried out. Oma rushed to him, shaking him, calling his name. But no matter how wide he opened his eyes, the world was gone. The sun did not return. The faces did not return. The land he loved disappeared into endless night. The village gathered. Elders whispered. Some said it was a curse. Others said it was bad luck. The healer said the sickness had gone too far. Oma stayed at first. She guided him by the hand. She helped him eat. She spoke gently when he woke in fear. But slowly, her voice changed. Her steps became heavy. Her silence grew long. Food became scarce. Kofi could no longer work the land. His father had already died, and the farm fell into neglect. The respect of the village faded like smoke. One evening, Oma sat across from him. He could feel the distance between them, cold and wide. "Kofi," she said, "how will we live?" He reached for her hand. "We will find a way. I will learn something new. Please, be patient." She pulled her hand away. Patience does not fill an empty pot. Days later, she began returning home late. She spoke of other men who were doing well. Men with cattle. Men with full granaries. Kofi listened in silence, his heart growing heavy. Then came the night she left. She packed her things without care. The sound of folded cloth cut through the room. Kofi sat on the mat, listening, unable to stop her. "Oma," he said quietly, "do not go." She paused, but her heart had already left. "I cannot tie my life to darkness," she said. "I want more." "What about love?" Kofi asked. "Love is not enough," she replied. Her footsteps faded into the night. The door did not close gently. Kofi remained there until morning, alone with his thoughts and the sound of birds that reminded him of everything he had lost. Weeks passed. Hunger followed him like a shadow. He begged when he had no choice. Shame became his daily companion. Then one afternoon, whispers reached his ears in the market. "Oma is with child," a woman said. "They say it is yours," another replied. The words struck Kofi like thunder. That night, he sat alone, his heart torn between pain and unanswered questions. Was the child his? Had Oma known before she left? He would never know. Oma, on the other hand, felt a different storm. When she realized she was pregnant, fear filled her. She thought of Kofi and pushed the thought away. She chose security over truth. You promise food, protection, and a name for the child. Still, in quiet moments, guilt whispered to her. She remembered Kofi's calm voice. His patience. His kindness. But pride closed her ears. By the time she returned to the village square, pregnant and proud, Oma had convinced herself that leaving Kofi was the right choice. She did not know that the same darkness she feared was shaping Kofi into something the village had never seen. And while Oma walked forward with eyes open but heart closed, Kofi sat in darkness, learning how to see in ways no one else could. After the day of public shame, Kofi stopped begging in the village square. He no longer sat under the baobab tree where laughter had rained on him like stones. Instead, he walked beyond the edge of Ahenfie, guided by memory, the sound of birds, and the feel of the earth beneath his feet. He walked where the land grew quiet, where people rarely went, and where the spirits of the old ones were said to rest. That was where he met Nene Kweku. The old man lived in a small mud house hidden among tall trees. The air around the place smelled of herbs, smoke, and age. Nene Kweku was very old. His back was bent like a question, but his voice was strong like a drum. Why does a blind man walk alone into the forest? Nene Kweku asked as Kofi approached. Kofi stopped at once. I am not lost, he said respectfully. I am searching. Searching for what? The old man asked. Purpose, Kofi replied. Nene Kweku laughed softly. Many men with eyes never find that. The old man invited Kofi to sit. He listened as Kofi told his story, his blindness, his poverty, Oma's rejection, and the shame of the village. Nene Kweku said nothing until Kofi finished. You have suffered, Nene Kweku said at last. But suffering does not always come to destroy. Sometimes, it comes to open a door. Kofi stayed with Nene Kweku. But help did not come easily. The first lesson was patience. Every morning before sunrise, Nene Kweku sent Kofi to fetch water from the stream. The path was rough. Kofi fell many times. His knees bled. Still, he returned each time with the calabash full. When Kofi asked why he was made to suffer more, Nene Kweku answered, a man who cannot walk through pain cannot walk into destiny. Next came silence. Nene Kweku ordered Kofi to remain quiet for 7 days. No speaking. No questions. Only listening. Kofi learned to hear the language of the land, the wind brushing leaves, insects calling to each other, the slow breathing of the earth at night. You are learning to see, Nene Kweku said. Eyes are not the only door. After the silence came work. Nene Kweku taught Kofi about roots and leaves. Which healed fever. Which calmed pain. Which strengthened the heart. Kofi memorized everything by touch and smell. His hands became wise. His nose learned truth. His mind grew sharp. Then came the drums. Hidden behind the old man's house were 3 ancient drums. They were carved with symbols of ancestors. Nene Kweku said they had not been played in many years. These drums do not answer to eyes, the old man said. They answer to spirit. He taught Kofi how to touch them, not beat them. How to listen before playing. When Kofi struck the drum for the first time, the sound traveled far, deep and gentle. Birds fell silent. The air seemed to hold its breath. Nana Kweku smiled. You have the gift. Kofi practiced every day. Each rhythm carried meaning, healing, comfort, warning, hope. People passing through the forest stopped to listen. Some felt their pain ease. Others felt tears fall without knowing why. One night, Nana Kweku prepared a small ritual. He burned herbs and spoke softly to the ancestors. He placed his hands on Kofi's head. You will not see the world as others do, he said. But the world will see you. From that day, people began to come quietly. A woman with a sick child. A man with a heavy heart. Nana Kweku sent them to Kofi. The drums and herbs worked together. Healing followed. News spread beyond Ahenfie. Chiefs from far villages sent messengers. But Kofi did not ask for praise. He asked only for respect and fairness. Coins began to fill his bowl again, but this time, not as pity. As payment. Still, Kofi dressed simply. He remained humble. Nana Kweku warned him, pride blinds faster than darkness. One evening, Nana Kweku called Kofi close. His voice was weak. My time is ending, he said. What you have learned must continue. Kofi felt fear. I cannot do this alone. You are not alone, Nana Kweku replied. The ancestors walk with you. When Nana Kweku passed away quietly days later, Kofi mourned deeply. But he did not stop. The blind man had become something new. Back in Ahenfie, Oma began hearing whispers. A blind man who heals, someone said. A drummer who touches the soul, said another. Oma frowned. A strange feeling stirred in her chest. She did not know yet. But destiny was already moving toward the village square once again. After Nana Kweku joined the ancestors, Kofi did not return to the village of Ahenfie. Instead, he stayed near the forest, in the small mud house that had once belonged to the old man. The place became known as the Quiet House, because people who entered left with softer hearts and lighter steps. Kofi rose before sunrise each day. He cleaned the drums with care, speaking to them as if they were living elders. He prepared herbs by touch and smell, just as Nana Kweku had taught him. Though his eyes were dark, his mind was clear, and his spirit was steady. The first visitor came from a nearby village, a mother carrying a child who cried day and night. Kofi listened to the child's breath, played a slow rhythm on the drum, and placed warm leaves on the child's chest. By morning, the crying stopped. The second visitor came with a wounded leg. Then another came with a heart full of sorrow. One by one, word spread. People began to travel long distances to find the blind healer who could listen better than anyone they had ever met. Kofi never set a price. He accepted whatever was given, yams, cloth, goats, or coins. Slowly, his store grew. Not because he asked for wealth, but because gratitude followed him like a loyal friend. Yet, Kofi's life remained simple. He ate modestly. He wore plain clothes. When visitors bowed to him, he lifted them up. I am only a servant, he would say. Far away, the name Kofi reached the ears of chiefs. One such chief was Chief Ndom, ruler of a powerful land. The chief had a sickness that no healer could cure. Messengers were sent quietly, for chiefs did not like to show weakness. When Kofi was brought to the chief's palace, drums lined the walls, and gold shone everywhere. But Kofi did not bow to wealth. He listened to the chief's breathing, played a deep rhythm, and prepared herbs that strengthened the blood. 3 days later, Chief Ndom stood without pain. You are welcome in my land always, the chief said. Ask for anything. Kofi paused. Respect for my work is enough. The chief insisted. He gave Kofi land, cattle, and protection. But Kofi asked that his name be kept quiet. He did not want noise. He wanted peace. So his wealth grew in silence. Back in Ahenfie, Oma struggled. Yo's promises faded like morning mist. Food became scarce. His temper grew sharp. He returned home drunk, angry, and empty-handed. Oma often touched her belly, fear mixing with regret. She remembered Kofi's patience. She remembered his calm voice. Then the rumors came. Have you heard of the blind man who heals chiefs? A woman asked in the market. Oma froze. They say he plays drums that speak to the heart, another said. They say he is rich but lives like a poor man. Oma's heart beat fast. She tried to shake the thought away. Many blind men existed. It could not be him. But the whispers grew louder. One evening, she asked Yo, have you heard of this healer? Yo scoffed. Stories for fools. But doubt had already entered Oma's heart. Meanwhile, Kofi returned to Ahenfie quietly. He did not announce himself. He walked through the village paths, listening. He heard the same laughter, the same pride, the same careless words. But this time, they did not touch him. He built a small house on land given by Chief Ndom, just outside the village. Few knew it was his. One night, drums sounded from the forest, deep, powerful, calling. The village elders stirred. Those drums speak of ancestors, one said. Chief Ndom sent a message to Ahenfie. The healer will come for the festival of the ancestors, the message said. Prepare the square. Oma felt a strange fear she could not name. She did not know that the blind man she mocked was about to stand before the village, not as a beggar, but as a force shaped by patience, pain, and purpose. And when he did, nothing in Ahenfie would ever be the same. The festival of the ancestors came with the sound of drums and the smell of roasted meat. In Ahenfie, such a day was sacred. People wore their best cloth. Elders painted symbols on their faces. The village square was cleaned until the red earth shone under the sun. Oma stood among the women, her child now heavy in her arms. Her face looked tired. Yo was not beside her. He had left weeks ago, chasing another promise. Still, Oma held her head high, though her heart was restless. The drums began slowly, calling the spirits of those who walked before. Children danced. Men clapped. Women sang praises. Then silence fell. From the edge of the square, the sound of footsteps approached. A voice spoke. Make way. Chief Ndom entered, dressed in deep blue cloth, his staff shining. Behind him walked elders from other lands. At the center, guided by a young boy, walked a man holding a carved drum. The man was blind. Oma's breath stopped. Kofi stepped forward. Whispers rushed through the crowd like wind. That is him. The healer. The blind man. Some laughed softly, thinking it a joke. Others frowned, confused. Chief Ndom raised his hand. People of Ahenfie, he said, today, you honor the ancestors. But you must also honor the living. He pointed to Kofi. This man healed me when all others failed. Gasps filled the air. Kofi stood calm, his face steady. He played the drum. The sound was deep and rich, filling the square. People felt something stir inside them, memories, regrets, hope. Oma's hands shook. The child began to cry. Chief Ndom continued. This man asked for no praise. He asked for respect. I gave him land, cattle, and honor. The village fell silent. Someone dropped a bowl. Kofi stepped forward. I once begged here, he said gently. I was mocked here. But I do not come for revenge. Oma could no longer stand. She fell to her knees. Kofi, she cried, tears falling. Forgive me. The child's cry grew louder. Kofi walked toward her. He listened. He smiled softly. The child is innocent, he said. The crowd held its breath. Kofi placed a coin in Oma's hand, not pity, but peace. This village taught me pain, he said. But pain taught me purpose. No one spoke. The truth had stood up. And it could not be mocked again. The village square was quiet after the festival. The drums still echoed in the hearts of the people, though their hands were still and their mouths silent. Oma sat on the edge of the square, holding her child. She had wept until her body ached, shame weighing her down. Kofi had healed more than the sick, he had healed the pride of the village with his calm presence. People expected something, revenge. They had seen the pain Oma had caused, the mockery, the arrogance of Yo. They whispered among themselves, will Kofi punish them? Will he make Oma suffer? But Kofi had learned the lessons of the forest, of Nene Kweku, and of the drums. He knew that anger, no matter how justified, would blind a man faster than any disease. He had seen with his spirit, and his spirit was stronger than the eyes of any man. He approached Oma and her child. The sun fell soft on his shoulders, and the village watched, holding its breath. The child cries, Kofi said softly. And the child is innocent. Oma's tears fell freely. I do not deserve your forgiveness, she whispered. Kofi knelt slowly beside her. You do not need my forgiveness to care for your child. But you need to learn humility. Pride blinds more than darkness ever could. The people murmured, feeling the weight of his words. Kofi stood slowly. He faced the village square, and every eye, young and old, met him. I was blind, he said. I was mocked. I was abandoned. But I did not stop learning. I did not stop growing. The world may have taken my sight, but it could not take my purpose. The elders nodded. The children listened wide-eyed. Even Oma, with her shame and regret, understood the truth. Kofi had chosen a path of strength, patience, and compassion. He had risen without losing his heart. Then Kofi spoke to the village. Let this be known, a man without eyes may see more than a man with them. A man who respects others earns respect. A man who learns from suffering becomes stronger than any wealth. Let this be your lesson. The crowd fell silent, the words settling like seeds in fertile soil. Some women wept quietly. Some men hung their heads. Pride had been shaken, and humility had taken its place. Oma looked at Kofi and whispered, Can you ever forgive me? Kofi smiled. I have already forgiven. Your child does not deserve the weight of our anger. Care for the child. That is enough. He turned and walked away, his cane tapping softly on the earth. The villagers followed him with their eyes, feeling the power of a man who had nothing, yet held everything. Oma sat still, holding her child. She realized that life had given her a lesson too, one she could not ignore. She understood that pride and judgment had blinded her, and it had taken Kofi's patience and strength to show her the way. From that day forward, Kofi became a figure of respect in Ahenfie. He helped all who came to him, rich or poor. He healed the sick, comforted the troubled, and taught the children to listen to the land, to the drums, and to their hearts. People no longer laughed at him. They whispered his name with reverence. And Oma? She worked to become a better woman, learning humility and patience from the man she once scorned. Her child grew under the protection of Kofi's wisdom, never knowing the cruelty of the past, only the kindness that now surrounded them. The village remembered that day forever. The day the blind man stood, not just to heal, but to teach the truth. The day the silent strength of one man humbled the arrogance of many. The day the ancestors nodded, proud that justice, wisdom, and mercy had walked among the living. And so, the moral became clear, sung by mothers to children, repeated by elders under the stars. A man without eyes may still see the future. But a man without respect is blind forever. Kofi had lost his sight, but he had gained something far greater, the vision of the heart, the power of patience, and the triumph of true wisdom. The village of Ahenfie would never forget the blind man who chose mercy over revenge, love over hatred, and purpose over despair. The drums still echoed in the night, reminding everyone that the greatest strength lies not in what you see, but in what you do with what you cannot see. And Kofi? He smiled quietly, knowing the ancestors had guided him all along, and that even in darkness, a man could shine brighter than the sun.